Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, UXUI Advocate. My name is Kristen, and this video is all going to be about week 18 of my UXUI Bootcamp certificate journey. So welcome for those who have never seen my face before, but you decided to click on my video. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. And for those who have watched a couple of my videos, all of my videos, like always, I appreciate you spending the time to do so. So let's jump into the content. Okay, so week 18, all centered around CSS related content. So like CSS Flexbox and all of the things relating to being able to kind of manipulate different boxes and containers within your site so that it's easier for you to display content. We're going to go into more detail about that. I'm also going to pull up my GitHub, show my all the different links that go into my GitHub account for week 18 content, like the homework and stuff. And then I'll show like the final HTML, CSS, all of that content that I turned in for week 18 homework. But week 18 centered around things called CSS Flexbox that allow designers to kind of manipulate a web page so that the design is a lot more responsive. So if you think about, if you look at, I don't know, like CNN has a desktop version of their website, they have a mobile version, they have a tablet version, and all of these different devices have different screen sizes and windows to view content. And so when it comes to responsive web design, it's important to understand that your user might be viewing your content on a variety of different devices, and there's no way to account for every type of screen size or every type of device window. But it is important that your users are able to access content based on regardless of the device that they are looking or using or viewing your content on. And so when we talked about CSS Flexbox, it was just really important for us to understand that there's like different window sizes, and when we're designing like the UI portion of our like government website redesign or the homework that I'm about to show, we had to make sure that we knew how we wanted our user interface to look based on kind of like some like key cutoff points. And it was important for us to be able to design responsively when it comes to different device sizes. So CSS Flexbox helps with that. We talked about containers and all the things that go into like the CSS portion of our code, as well as grids. And I will preface, I am not a math girl whatsoever. So when we got into CSS grid and the percentages that go into grids, right over my head. I know that there's something that I need to work on and learn more about. But we did talk about grids within CSS and being able to kind of manipulate the boxes within Flexbox so that things are once again more responsive. So we talked about that. And then when it came to week 18, we also talked about media queries and animations. So first off, we have media queries. So media queries kind of define how CSS is going to look depending on the device size. So once again, it all goes back to having a responsive web design, depending on the device that the user is going to be viewing your content from. So media queries, if I remember correctly, take into consideration the viewpoint or the viewport of the device, so like the window of the device, making sure that your content is effectively being displayed the way that you designed it to be. And it's just really important to know what your viewer is going to see on that side of things, because it is different when you're designing versus when you're using a product or some type of like a website. It's really important for us as designers to be able to see what the user is going to see. So media queries really help with that. I will say too, media queries and the animations portion of week 18, I felt like I was doing pretty good with like week 17 stuff, and it was basic HTML and basic CSS. And then week 18 hit and we talked about Flexbox and being able to manipulate elements in HTML and CSS in a more in-depth way. And I just started kind of getting more and more confused. So you could tell that, like I could tell personally that I needed like I asked more questions in class because I was more confused. And I depended heavily on YouTube to kind of walk me through like baby steps, walk me through the process of Flexbox and media queries too. When it came to the end of week 18, we talked about animations, which I felt like was kind of the funnest part because you actually got to see how your elements came to life. So we really just talked about like simple animations and slightly complex animations within CSS, but nothing too in-depth at that point. But we talked about CSS transitions and keyframes and like the percentages that go into transforming different elements to move in particular ways. But yeah, that's it for week 18 when it comes to like in-class stuff. Also, I wanted to pull up my GitHub here, my GitHub repository, and show like the final content for week 18 homework. I didn't show week 17 homework, if I remember correctly, in the previous video on my YouTube channel, only because I wanted to show, just kind of like try to explain the basic elements when it comes to HTML and CSS. Like I said, filming these YouTube videos also helps me refresh the content that we talked about in class and try my hardest to explain the things that are going on in my brain through YouTube. So YouTube has been super helpful to me, and so also talking this out also helps as well. So I still wanted to show what I've done so far. So let me share my screen here. And actually I can just move myself out this way. Okay, so I have my GitHub repository. I think I have all of my content. Yeah, I have week 17, 18, and 19, but we're going to go into week 18 right now. And I have, of course, my CSS content, all of the images, as well as like the HTML stuff that I've kind of made changes to along the way. With that in mind, I have this content here. And then I also have like the actual, like the code, like I was doing the original code on my computer and then uploaded it onto my GitHub repository so that my TAs could actually look at the content and grade my homework. So the index, and then that is the index. I wonder why it's looking like that. That's interesting. I might need to go back and fix that. But this is what we're working with so far when it comes to my HTML and my CSS. And I'm just going to show what I have so far. It's a work in progress. So this is what I had in relation to the HTML and the CSS that I completed for homework 18. And bear in mind too, it looks a little weird because I was working on this on my MacBook Pro rather than my full desktop that you're viewing the content on. And then everything, well, most things at least, are connected to like the physical website that we had did this original project on. So a little backstory, for our group project, we had to pick a nonprofit agency and we picked the Texas Sprint Project. We were tasked with designing or redesigning their website, doing the interviews, the full design process, and then finally coding for week 18. We were going to code the original site that we had redesigned. It looks pretty similar to the actual Figma, the actual design that we did in Figma. I'm going to pull it up. Let me see if I can find it on here. Okay, so this was the original Figma file that we had to recreate, for week 18. And you can see here I did some annotations prior to even starting because I wanted to figure out like what was my header and what were the different sections that I needed to include within my document, my HTML and CSS documents. So I did some annotating for myself. And then I tried to type out code by hand on the sidebar here, and that didn't quite work out. So I ended up switching over to VS Code to kind of finish out this homework assignment. But it really kind of blocking all of these different sections out helped me like visualize how I wanted things to look when it came to actually coding this page. So this is the original, and then this is, and you can see it's not super responsive because of this navigation portion isn't quite, like it's not stretching and condensing and expanding the way that it should be on an actual responsive site. So that is something I also need to work on too when it comes to editing this site. But so this was just me practicing, trying to get better at coding, trying to get better at CSS Flexbox, the different grids. And yeah, I will say I'm super, super proud of this footer because the footer was a pain in the butt, and YouTube helped so much with trying to figure out the columns that go with inside of this footer and being able to use Flexbox to make the columns and the rows like easier to actually write out. And I'm just really, really proud of the fact that I was able to complete that. But yeah, that is homework week 18. Yeah. With that, I think I'm going to end it there. If you stayed this long, I really appreciate the time and energy that you put into watching my videos. If you have any questions, please let me know. I really don't know if I'll be able to answer anything, but I still love engaging with anybody and everyone that asks questions. But yeah, with that, thank you so much for spending your evening with me, your time with me. And then I will see you on the next one. Bye.